everyone. It's so nice to see so many people here. Gretchen and I are very excited to present this project to you all, and I can tell you that there are going to be some very beautiful things to see. So, get the right clicker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been doing with Instagram, because that's the focus of this project. It's our most engaged and fastest growing audience, so we've been spending a lot of time creating content and projects for this particular audience. Just a quick look at what we call our footprint. Like many other organizations, we're on the usual suspects of social media channels, so Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr. But I just wanted to show this slide really quickly because, as you'll see, we've sort of had fairly steady growth in most of these social media channels, but something very interesting has been happening with our Instagram channel, especially in the last year, where we've seen a pretty sharp spike in terms of the number of followers that we're getting. And it is not that surprising when you see what the explosion of photography culture, especially in the United States. Everyone has one of these. People are taking pictures. It's just very different than it was maybe when we first launched the Instagram channel back in 2011. So as this visual photography culture just explodes, it's something that we've really taken advantage of. And for a museum with a pretty extensive art collection, it's just a really fantastic way for us to tell stories and let people know what we're doing in a very visual way, which of course makes sense for us. So this is just a quick screenshot just showing some of the things that we've shown, ranging from performances to music to education programs down in front of the Pollock to a recent installation of Pierre Quay's bee sculpture in our sculpture garden. So just as I was saying, we are spending a lot of time in carrying and feeding this particular channel. So we have been doing a lot of takeovers by curators, where we give the keys to the Instagram account over to curators, and they have it for a week, and they can post content or a project that they're working on. Just tell a visual story, get behind the scenes, give people a look behind the curtain. A lot of live event video, and we've done some collaborations with some artists as well. So just a really quick spin through some of our quote takeovers where we've given the keys to the curators. This is just showing a post by one of our curators talking a little bit about the models that we use for developing exhibitions, these 3D models. And then another one of our curators, she did another takeover where she really kind of talked about how things get cleaned and prepped before the day starts at the museum. Here's a quick screenshot of an event video. We had an artist collective called the Office for Creative Research and Elevator Repair do a video based on our collection data, which was a really interesting thing, and we posted that. This is just a quick shot of a music program that we have at MoMA called MoMA Nights. We did a quick, well not quick, but down and dirty collaboration with the illustrator Christoph Niemann. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does a column called Abstract Sunday in the New York Times, where he does these really fantastic illustrations, and he came into the museum to do some riffs on our collection. So he took photographs and then combined them with drawing to create some really very, very fun illustrations based on our galleries. That also resulted in a spread in the New York Times, where he really had some fun with Duchamp Bicycle Wheel and some other really pretty well-known works. Starry Night is up there on the left, getting printed. Van Gogh's Beard is extended. So when we, in 2014, the museum was working on an exhibition called Latin American Construction, architecture from the period, looking at the period 1955, 1980. And just some quick background, in 1955, the museum did a survey on Latin American architecture that covered the past 10 years. But from this period, 1955, 1980, there was a period of really complex political shifts and turmoil and dictatorships And that sort of coincided with like this explosion in architectural production and development. So the curator for MoMA, Barry Bergdahl, he said that even though he had 3 degrees, he knew very little about Latin American architecture. And he really wanted to take a look at this period in particular and present it. So there were 500 works. The exhibition is now closed, including models and drawings and vintage photographs, but it did focus on this particular period of time. So he came to us in the marketing department, and this is one of the most exciting and interesting things about this project, is that it came from a curator. It wasn't necessarily the marketing department going to the curator and saying, hey, we have a social media idea. He came to us and he said, you know, even though this exhibition technically ends in 1980, it has like an endpoint, you know, how can we show what these buildings look like? How are they seen? How are they used today? So, you know, on our end in marketing, we said, you know, faced with these challenges, we know we need to come up with a solution that is, you know, going to involve social media, that's going to involve crowdsourcing, is going to need a partner. So we went into this project, which is called ArchiMoMA, with these 3 goals, which is to, you know, support a curatorial premise with a social media component, and to engage a global audience through our existing channels. And we really wanted to focus on Latin America because the show, these 500 works, they came from projects from Mexico to Cuba. So it was really very, very broad. And we wanted to collect, you know, diverse and like really high quality photographic submissions from as many locations as possible and from as many countries where the sites and the projects that were in the exhibition were included. So I'm now going to turn this over to Gretchen, who will take you through the actual development of this project. What you're looking at now is a screen that was outside the exhibition that showed the Instagram project, the embed. So as you left the exhibition, you could see this, you know, this is what it looks like today, component to the exhibition.
Hi, everybody. So this was a great project in that there was actually an in-gallery component, but I'm sure for those of you who work in social or in marketing, a wall like this looks really great, but it can also be a little bit scary because you have to have really amazing content on it. And the technology to make sure that it works and there are no glitches. So one of the things we wanted to do with this program was work directly with Instagram, who have offices in New York City. And so one of the first things we did was sit down and figure out how are we going to feed content to this wall of photos of the exhibition. And one of the ways we thought to do that was obviously through crowdsourcing and using the hashtag ArchiMoMA. And the way we settled on Archi for the hashtag is that that's the root of the word arquitectura in Portuguese and Spanish, which were the languages we were working with for this project. So the first thing we did was put out a call through all of our existing social media channels to invite people across Latin America to take photos of the buildings in the exhibition. And we provided a list of which buildings we were interested in having photos of. And just said, please submit them via Instagram using this hashtag, and they may wind up on a wall in MoMA. So that's a pretty appealing ask, and people were very excited. We were fortunate enough, given that we were partnering with Instagram, that they also promoted the project through their official channels, which obviously reached a very wide audience, which was great. They highlighted one photographer in particular. And so we initially announced this project before the exhibition opened. And as I was saying, the challenge was that once the exhibition opened, we needed to already have a wall full of beautiful photos. So we needed to actually launch this in advance of the exhibition, although it did continue through the entire run of the exhibition. So there was already going to be a press conference in Mexico City to announce the exhibition, and we figured that was a natural opportunity to announce this project as well. And before the press conference ended at the Tamayo Museum, we actually already had several submissions because that was one of the buildings featured in the exhibition. So things got off to a good start. And one other way we worked to seed the content before the exhibition opened was to set up Insta Meets, which are just in-person meetups for Instagram users in 11 different cities across Latin America on March 14th. So this was really moving and exciting to watch these images come in. No one from the MoMA team actually traveled to Latin America for this project, so I was in my apartment in Brooklyn watching these images come in from all over Latin America all on one day, which was amazing. In the top right, you can see a group of Instagrammers in Cuba at Copelia, which is an ice cream parlor. Instagram connectivity is a little iffy in Cuba, so we weren't totally sure when we would be seeing these photos, but I think it was just under a dozen people were there for that one. And if you look, yeah, first ever Insta-Meet in Cuba. And then on the top left, you can see we got several hundred people at the University of Central Venezuela in Caracas. So it really was a range from very small groups at some more remote locations to very large groups. And they had a lot of fun taking photos of each other and together, which is great. So I'll just breeze through some of the photos that we got that day. As the photos were coming in from different locations, we were regramming them through the official MoMA account. So this is in Buenos Aires. This is in Bogota. And what was amazing about a lot of these buildings, tying back to our curator's mandate for us, is that a lot of them are public universities. A lot of them were buildings that maybe were not in the greatest shape. Had fallen into some disrepair and were not necessarily viewed by the communities as masterworks of architecture, but according to our curators and based on the information in the show, they were incredibly important works of art, really. So what was amazing is we started to see a lot of comments from people saying that this is a university in Mexico, and they said, oh, this is my library that I go to every day as a university student. I never really thought of it as anything special or a work of art, and obviously some people did, but I think it was a great opportunity for people to sort of look at their city in a new way. So that's in Mexico City, as I said. This is a museum. Several of the buildings that we focused on were museums, and we tried to have a mix of some big cities where we knew we would get a lot of participation and some more remote locations. So this is in Cuba. This is in Brazil. This was actually a building in Chile, and this was sort of a challenge because it was a government building and the curators really wanted to feature this building, but we had to work with the Chilean consulate to get access to the building. So there are a couple little things along the way. But anyway, we had the Insta-Meets. We got hundreds of submissions that first day, and that was really helpful in promoting the project from that point on. Oh, sure, yeah, if you want, can we switch over to the live feed? So this is a page on MoMA.org. We're just gonna switch over to the live feed so you can see it live. Can you scroll down a little bit? Thank you. So this is basically an embed. It's the same thing you would have seen on the wall in the exhibition as you were exiting. And it animates on its own. We spent a lot of time tinkering with how long the images would stay up for, making sure that all the photographers were credited, things along those lines, making sure that we didn't have too many images of the same buildings, making sure there weren't any repeats, making sure that images were relevant. So this was a real moderation challenge, but it was exciting. So you can switch back, actually. But any of you can go to moma.org/archimoma and see this. It'll just animate on and on through thousands of submissions. So one thing that was great that came out of this project is that by launching it at the press conference and by including it in all the press materials, the program itself, the Instagram project, was included in a lot of mentions and reviews of the exhibition itself. And I think we were fortunate in that it was physically part of the exhibition. So a lot of folks focused on that. So we had some architecture coverage. We had, being a little finicky. Oh, sorry. So yeah, we were very fortunate in that there was a little sidebar in the New York Times review of the exhibition specifically about the project, which was exciting. And one thing that we started to notice as we were looking through these thousands of submissions that came in were that a lot of people were taking screenshots of the MoMA website or visiting the museum and taking photos of their photo up on the wall. So it really became sort of a moment of pride for the people who submitted photos to see, oh my gosh, they chose my photo to be included. So that was something that really was moving to me. So in the end, this was a huge effort for us, and it really paid off. It was very successful. I think, as Becky said, one thing that was really fulfilling for us is that it did meet a curatorial need. So it wasn't just a project that the marketing department thought up just to drive buzz. It was really something that was fulfilling the mission of the museum. We had over 21,000 posts with the hashtag. There were about 2 million interactions on those posts. And the coverage from Instagram's official channels was really helpful in boosting the message and getting the word out. Obviously, we did a lot to promote this, but having that lift from them was incredibly helpful. Reached 124 million users across all of their social channels and their blog. We were really excited in that we gained a lot of new followers right around the time of the Insta Meets, and 18% of those were in Latin America, so we really were able to boost our social audience there. We were very excited in that we got to work with a lot of sort of power users on Instagram. One of the ways that we set up the Insta Meets was to choose an architecture expert who we worked with our curatorial department to select in each location, and Instagram chose an Instagram representative. So for each meetup, since we weren't going to be there, there was somebody who could speak to the history of the building and speak to the project from an architectural standpoint, and there was somebody to sort of lead and organize the event from a photography, Instagram, social side of things. So that involved a lot of coordination in advance, since there are Instagram representatives in parts of Latin America, but not in every one of the cities that we did this in. So we really had to rely on sort of the social media community to get these events organized. As Becky mentioned, first ever Insta-Meet in Cuba, which was something that was pretty cool. We're proud of that. And then obviously the media coverage was great, a nice bonus as well. So what did we learn? This was a really time-consuming project. It was really exciting, and you know, we got a ton of great feedback from the people who participated, and it was amazing, but it did involve a lot of coordination, especially in terms of setting up the Insta Meets. You know, we reached out to a lot of architecture professors and academics and things like that to be the architecture representative, and a lot of Instagram users to be the Instagram representative. We had to introduce them via email. We had to figure out when the event was happening in each location. You know, just a lot of coordination on that end, and then a lot of time spent moderating. I think we learned definitely that it was useful that we were very clear in our call to action. So the fact that we narrowed it down and said, you know, we're not asking for photos of every building in the exhibition. We're asking for photos of this smaller list of buildings. Sort of gave people clear instructions. Obviously, we tried to plan ahead as much as possible, but there were a lot of snags along the way, things that were sort of surprises. As I mentioned, we had a lot of images of certain locations that were very easy to get to, that were very popular, and we wanted to approve any image that met our criteria, but then we also wound up with a wall in the galleries that had, you know, significant percentage of images of this one particular building, so we had to be careful when we were moderating. Another moderation issue was that we had to make sure that every photograph was of one of those buildings, and so as the person moderating the board, I had to familiarize myself with all of the buildings on the list and make sure that I knew, you know, what the window of such and such bank in Buenos Aires looked like, and that was that in fact taken there, and geotagging helped with that a little bit. Obviously, partnering with Instagram was a huge help. We definitely were fortunate in that we got things started before the exhibition opened. I think, you know, when you start a project like this, it's a little bit of an unknown, and you don't necessarily know what kind of response you're going to get. You hope for the best possible response, but I think by seeding the content pool in advance, we at least knew that we would start the exhibition with several hundred photographs, and that was a good basis to build from. And also in terms of approving photos to be included, we obviously wanted to keep very high standards because these photos were going to be appearing in gallery space. But we also, you know, were putting the call out to everybody. We wanted to be generous and be inclusive, and you know, accept photos with people in them. And you know, if a family took a photo in front of a building and the image wasn't too fuzzy and it was a building in the show, we would approve that. So we were trying to be as open and inviting as possible. And so what's next? Now that the exhibition closed, we're looking at how we can archive this program. So we're talking to Instagram about, you know, where can this live? Would it live online? Would it live in print? You know, how can we, now that we have, you know, several thousand submissions, how can we make a record of this in some way? And this fall, we're turning to a lot of new Instagram projects. We have a big Picasso show that's opening on Monday, and some stuff for our film department's 80th anniversary. So this was a great project. It got a lot of great response within the institution, and I think we'll probably be doing more things along those lines in the future. So that's it. Thanks.